the Yankee Division, so called because it was composed entirely of regiments from New England. That summer, he shipped out for France, where he would eventually fight in one terrible battle after another, until on November 11th, 1918, as he recalled, all firing stopped. Complete silence. There wasn't a sound at 11 o'clock. And we were able to go out of our dugouts and trenches without our helmets or gas masks, which was the first time we'd been able to do that since we first went to the front. Exactly 85 years later, he rode in a parade in the picturesque seaside town of Orleans, Massachusetts, to mark the anniversary of that day, just as he did every year. Afterward, I asked him why, at his age, he made a point of doing so. "People like to see a World War I exhibit," he replied. "I would assume that it means something to people to see a World War I veteran. Because there's not many of us around, as you know. Just to be able to say that you have seen a 106-year-old is satisfying to some people. After all, it's not an everyday event for most people." I couldn't argue with that. If anything, it was a serious understatement. It had taken me several months of intensive searching to find just such a man, and several more before I found myself here, witnessing this historic occasion. And yet, as remarkable as all this was to me, I would not grasp the occasion's true significance for some time to come. None of us who lined the road that morning could have known that what we were actually witnessing there in Orleans was the last small-town Veterans Day parade anywhere to feature a living American veteran of World War I. I write these words on the island of Manhattan, the center of a city older than Boston and Philadelphia, a city that is richer in history than perhaps any other in America. That this is so often comes as a surprise to people, because New York is and always has been about what is new, not what is old, about what will be rather than what was. But just a few blocks from where I sit, mounted on the front of a small vest-pocket Presbyterian church, there is a very large plaque listing the names of 136 members of that congregation who went off to fight in the First World War, including 5 who never returned. 3 blocks away, inside a large Catholic church, another plaque lists the names of 38 men from the parish who were killed in the same war. Across the park, almost to the East River, is York Avenue. Most New Yorkers assume it is named, as is their city, for the Duke of York, but it is actually an homage to Sergeant Alvin C. York, a pacifist from the mountains of eastern Tennessee who was drafted and sent off to France, where, on the night of October 8, 1918, he single-handedly killed 17 German soldiers and captured 132 more, a feat for which he was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, the French Légion d'honneur, and several other high honors. Farther uptown, at the spot where Broadway and St. Nicholas Avenue converge, you will find a large bronze statue of Doughboys struggling on a battlefield, mounted atop a granite monument to neighborhood boys who did the same. And up at the tip of the island, in the neighborhood known as Inwood, there are streets named for local sons who never returned from the trenches. Their last names and the war they served in are all that is remembered of them today. And that's just what I can think of off the top of my head, for the top half of the island. There are statues, monuments, and plaques commemorating World War I all over this city that often doesn't seem to care about history. In parks and squares and libraries, in the South Bronx and Times Square, and the Lord & Taylor department store on Fifth Avenue. I'm not sure I could direct you to 3 World War II monuments within the 5 boroughs, and believe me, I pay attention to these sorts of things. But World War I is everywhere. And not just in New York. In Memphis, where I lived in the early 1990s, the city's most revered old park is dominated by a massive green statue of a doughboy charging up a hill. Lips pursed in a grim scowl, bayonet thrust out to skewer the Hun. I can think of only 2 Civil War monuments in the entire city, which was occupied by the Yankees for 3 years before Appomattox. Most of these statues, monuments, plaques, and memorials were commissioned, produced, and dedicated within about a decade of November 11, 1918. For 10 years or so, maybe a bit longer in some cities or regions, a bit less in others,